Okay, we are live streaming and recording, so we should be good to go whenever you're ready.
Okay, welcome to the regular council meeting of May the 5th, 2020. Meeting called to order. We'll have a moment of silence. Approval of the agenda.
I have a motion moved by Casey Owens, seconded by Eugene Ivanoff. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held May 5th, 2020, beginning at 4:40 p.m. be approved as circulated to all members of council.
All in favor? Unanimous. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? We have two. Go ahead, Councillor Owens.
Yeah, I declare pecuniary interest on all discussions concerning the water and wastewater budgets, as my son and wife work in the water department. Also, I'm declaring pecuniary interest on the item in the roads budget about purchasing a new trackless machine, as my son is a trained operator for that machine and did use it last winter. As well, I'm declaring pecuniary interest in the budget item, the purchase of a snow and ice breaker for the trackless machine, because my son is a trained operator and was used and did fill in last winter on that machine.
Duly noted. Thank you, Councillor Owens. Councillor Adams.
Yep, item 6.6, member of the curling club and employee of Kirkland Lake Gold.
Duly noted. Councillor Ivanoff.
Item 6.6, I own a rental facility.
Okay. Okay, duly noted in the minutes. Petitions and delegations. None noted. Acceptance of the minutes and recommendations.
Motion moved by Rick Owens, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that council accept the minutes of the following meetings. Minutes of the regular meeting of council held April 21st, 2020.
All in favor? Unanimous? Passed. Reports of municipal officers and communications. COVID update. CAO Rick McGee.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council, we have 4 presenters this evening on the COVID-19. I'd just like to advise that while it appears the curve is flattening and we are starting to look at recovery, it is imperative that everyone continue to follow the medical officer of health advice and the Premier of the province, and we must stay vigilant with respect to social distancing and practicing good hygiene practices to continue to prevent the spread of COVID-19. In addition, Your Worship, I'd like to recognize our healthcare providers, especially in long-term care, extended care in the town of Kirkland Lake, and also Tech Pioneer resident. The infection control practices and devices, mechanisms that long-term care is using has obviously stopped the spread of COVID. The most recent testing in long-term care facilities throughout Temiskaming District showed that there was 6 additional cases in different homes involving residents and staff like members alike. And while there's still results to come and there may be 1 or 2 more cases, it shows that those practices have in fact worked, and it stopped the spread throughout those homes to residents and staff. So a job well done by those folks and by the medical officer of health and his staff. So if I can turn it over to Ms. Loach, followed by Ms. Sackrider, Mr. Gorman, and then Mr. Hawes for an update on recovery and economic development. They will cue each other, and we'll do this as expeditiously as possible, Your Worship. Thank you. And once again, vigilance is important. physical distancing, and good hygiene practices to prevent the spread of COVID-19 until the all clear is given by the province and the medical officer of health. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. So we have a brief update from Tech Pioneer residents. We did do our mandated surveillance testing of all residents and staff. That occurred on April 28th and 29th. We have 6 results outstanding. Otherwise, all have been negative. Temiskaming Health Unit has been conducting unannounced IPAC assessment inspections. We had ours this past Friday, May 1st, with one concern that was raised, and that's been addressed. The last note I have is pandemic pay was announced by the Ford government. To date, we have not received any direction from the government regarding the process to pay eligible recipients. We're hoping that that is going to be forthcoming in the next few days so that we can roll this out to everyone who is anxiously awaiting it. Thank you. Bonnie, you're next.
Thank you and good afternoon, Your Worship and members of Council. As we inch closer to social and economic reopening, many people are feeling a range of emotions from excited anticipation to nervous apprehension. This is extremely understandable given the uncertainties ahead. Municipal staff are reviewing guidance documents and directives on a daily basis, and we will only be proposing gradual reopening when advised by the Government of Ontario and with all recommendations in place from our provincial organizations. Living with COVID-19 will be something we need to reconcile with. This means physical distancing, hand washing, and cough etiquette must continue, especially during the reopening process. Until we are ready to reopen, staff are continuing to ensure that essential services throughout the municipality are continuing, as well as making certain the residents of Kirkland Lake are aware of what the outdoor restrictions are. Staff have taped off benches and picnic tables in local parks, ensured playground equipment and outdoor fitness equipment is not accessible, locked areas such as Civic Park, the Splash Park, playgrounds, and the dog park, and signed and roped off the bike park. We are sympathetic that it's so hard for our young residents, especially, to understand why these fun amenities are not accessible. We all await stage 1 and 2 when some outdoor spaces can be safely reopened. Physical distance guidelines and procedures have been put in place for free tipping fees at the landfill, which began yesterday. If you've not had a chance to review the video on social media or the municipal website, please do. It explains the measures clearly. The cemetery did open yesterday for the season with enhanced precautions in place to protect both staff and the general public. We are regularly posting to social media many items of interest, from activities to do with your families to updates on municipal services. As well, the website has a comprehensive COVID-19 area for updates. We are all continuing to do what we can do to stop the spread of COVID, to crush the curve, and to protect our families, friends, and fellow Canadians. Thank you, and over to Mr. Gorman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sackrider. As Ms. Loach touched on, we're awaiting confirmation from the government on the process for pandemic pay premiums. At this time, we're essentially testing it within our ERP system to ensure once we've been given direction, we can promptly roll out appropriately to our healthcare staff. We've been following guidance that's been put forth so far, although limited. As it stands, it appears this will not be pensionable, that the province is likely to assist with any employer portions on mandatory contributions, such as EI and CPP, which in effect means there should be no overall effect on the operating budget at TPR based on this preliminary information. It'll become more of a timing on exercise and cash inflows and outflows. We continue to monitor for support and funding opportunities that will be available for the municipality. To date, several programs have offered deferrals that the municipality can partake in, including DSAB, the opportunity to postpone or push out school board taxes, as well as delay submissions of WSIB premiums. I'd like to pass this along next to Mr. Haas, who will speak more in regards to economic development.
Thank you, Keith. Through you, Your Worship. The reopening of the province on a graduate basis is mixed with relief as well as apprehension. It is imperative that municipalities as well as the community continue to just exhibit their support for the business community, because they will be going into a period of the unknown that is perhaps as terrifying or more so than what has already passed. We continue to work with our regional partners on extending such assistance and collecting information that can help us access assistance in the future. The first survey on business impacts was done in April. A second survey, and this one will measure the impact of the assistance programs, will be released May 12 to 19. The partners have developed a business directory on a regional basis that will allow the businesses to update what their work hours are, any special notices, etc. We are working on a COVID-19 recovery website that will be offering information as well as training opportunities to local businesses to help them adjust. And that can help the businesses as they transition from not being open to partially open to full-time. Lastly, we are still working on putting together a virtual job fair that we hope will run in the Timiskaming district end of May or June. And that will be geared towards helping the businesses bring in people and bolster their ranks as they go through the reopening process. Thank you.
That concludes the update from staff, Your Worship. We're happy to answer any questions that members of council may have. Thank you.
Any comments or questions from council? None noted. We have a motion to accept the report.
Motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that the verbal update titled COVID-19 update be received.
All in favor? Unanimous, passed. Rob Adair, Fire Chief, on the fire alarm proposed bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council, I'm bringing forward the false alarm bylaw to be presented to council for approval. The master fire plan recommended that the corporation start charging for false alarms. This memorandum and false alarm bylaw contained in the bylaw section of the agenda are provided in response to that recommendation from the master fire plan. The adoption of the proposed bylaw should decrease the number of false alarms Kirkland Lake Fire Services responds to each year. In the rationale section of the memorandum, I've broken down the number of false alarms for the past 3 years and the amount of income that we could have brought in from the false alarms. So if there's any questions from anybody that I could answer.
Councillor Adams.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of this report. The money that would, so 2019 saw an estimate of $750. Would that money just go into the general operating budget? Because if so, something that I'd be interested in is maybe having a specific reserve for the fire department to help replace some of their gear, maybe help fund some of the replacement of their trucks and stuff. So even if it's just the false alarm, something that can even do as a revenue is even if we're handing out fire alarms to people, maybe we can charge for that, and that can go right towards that fund as well. But in the meantime, for this, I'm very supportive.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor White, please.
Yes, so I am actually very in support of the bylaw for sure. It is a good way to go towards more of a fee per use system than drawing on our tax base. So that's excellent. The only problem I actually have with it is under 4.2. The specification says that owners or occupants of property that use a fire alarm system should have 3 contacts available. Unfortunately, that isn't something that is a reality for many of our local citizens. Two examples, my aunt, a single older woman, she has a fire alarm system, a security system. She's the only contact. It goes right to her cell phone. My husband also manages 3 property. He only has 2 employees that actually matches this criteria set out in 4.2. So if we leave it as is, we're actually setting up people to contravene this newly presented bylaw. So I don't know if we can change that, but I definitely think that's something we should look at.
Maybe I can help out with that, Your Worship. With respect to the false alarm bylaw, the majority, if not all of the calls, and the chief can confirm this, are to institutional type buildings. Schools, the hospital, TPR, Extendicare, and it's in a situation where the alarm malfunctions. So it's typically associated with equipment such as heat detectors, where they're not operating properly and it's sending a false signal and calling the fire department out. The one thing that the bylaw does have that we ensured was there was full discretion on the part of the fire chief to make concessions in circumstances where there is only one person key holder who can be called. So I think that's covered, but I think it's more important that the institutional groups where it may be a large high-rise apartment building where the owner isn't calling in the maintainers to look after the fire alarm system, and the fire chief has to move to a situation where it's I'm going to charge you the next time because you're not maintaining this properly. So I think that the chief has the discretion and wouldn't levy a charge in a circumstance like Councillor White has referenced there, and the chief can confirm that as well.
Councillor White?
Okay, that's excellent, because I have been woken up multiple times with the sensors going off at the mall in the middle of the night. So thank you for that. And how will this bylaw affect situations where people pull the actual alarm, say at a public building like Giant Tiger or the dollar store? That also can happen and has happened in the past. So will those individuals be charged for the false alarm, or will it be the property owner?
With the bylaw, we've just focused on the alarm system equipment malfunction, false alarms. We're not gonna charge the business if somebody maliciously pulls the false alarm, or the poll station, sorry.
Thank you. Just an added note, it's not a major revenue producer, but from a safety standpoint, the fire department having to rush out to answer these calls, there's always an element of risk there. And if these alarms are going off by malfunctioning, as you noted, it does create some risk. So I think it's sending the right message to the property owners, commercial, industrial, especially to maintain their system and check it adequately that it's working and up to date. So I would support this bylaw as well. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Perrier?
No, I'm happy with this.
Okay. You just lit up, I wondered.
Oh, that's the clear off my head.
Okay, we have a motion.
We have a motion moved by Dennis Perrier, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that memorandum number 2020-FIR-001 entitled False Alarm Bylaw be received, and that the false alarm bylaw be presented to council for approval.
All in favor? Unanimous, approved. Next topic, 6.3, food market. Ms. Bonnie Sackrider, Director of Community Services.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Council. We have had quite a bit of interest so far in the 2020 food market, both from vendors and from the public who are asking a lot of questions if we're able to continue. We have contacted the vendors that we've had in the past, and they are very eager to ensure that the market will continue. The province of Ontario has created guidelines through the Food Market Ontario so that we are able to adhere to the guidelines from the province. As well, the province of Ontario has confirmed that businesses that sell primarily food are considered essential. So if we are to move forward with having a food market this summer, there are a number of protocols that we should instill. We were in consultation with both the health inspector from the Timiskaming Health Unit and through Farmers Markets Ontario. They produced a COVID-19 public safety protocol last month. So the protocols that we are recommending are from the Farmers Market Ontario for food markets. So there's a number of things that you'll see in your report. The one thing I wanted to expand on was the food market, Farmers Market Ontario COVID fact sheet that they do recommend that you are posting. It basically just says you're welcome to come to the market if you have no symptoms, if you've not traveled outside of Canada in the past 14 days, and if you've not been in close contact with a confirmed case. It recommends that you follow the physical distancing of 2 meters, and it recommends that you make your purchases as quickly as you can. Don't touch your products, ask the vendor to choose and package them for you. So these are going to be good reminders. It also tells people how to wash your hands and use hand sanitizer. We also have some recommendations for the food vendors that we've included in the report. From a financial point of view, the one thing that will be a change is that if we are going to move forward with the food market, we should have a staff member on site to make sure that the protocols are able to be followed. So we would recommend that we could use one of our students. Our students are university students typically, so they're usually age 20 up, so they're not young. We feel they would be able to handle what the protocol is with staff support when necessary. So there would be some wages that we would put towards the food market this year, which we have not necessarily done in the past. The revenues we've received in the past would cover the cost of the wages, although we aren't 100% sure if we'll get the same revenues. It probably will be a little bit less because this year we would only be able to accept, until the restrictions are lifted, food vendors. So in the past, we've also accepted craft vendors. That would not be allowed at this point in time until restrictions are lifted. So at this point, I entertain any questions that you may have.
Councillor Adams?
Yeah, full support of this. If we're able to move ahead with the appropriate controls by following the right guidelines, then the vendors can make money and our members of our municipality can be able to buy fresh fruit from local vendors. I think it's a great idea, and if we can do it appropriately, then why not?
Councillor Ivanoff?
Yeah, I also support this. I think the farmers and the vendors deserve a chance to make some money this summer. I think people deserve the opportunity to buy some fresh fruit and some produce from these guys, and provided the protocols are as outlined, I think it's a great idea.
I agree, Councillor Ivanoff. It's a definite plus for the community. It's been well accepted by our residents and some people from the outskirts. So it's nice to see this going forward again. Any further comments or questions? We have a motion.
Motion moved by Eugene Ivanoff, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that report number 2020-CS-005 entitled Food Market be received, and that staff be instructed to operate the 2020 food market with the appropriate protocols in place from Farmers Markets Ontario.
All in favor? Passed, unanimous. Item 6.4, postponement of the material hazardous waste event. Ms. Ashley Bilodeau.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So on December 3rd, Council approved a material hazardous waste event to occur on May 23rd. We have a few concerns with hosting this event given the current circumstances with COVID-19. At this point, the The event would involve removing material from vehicles and close contact with staff, participants, and contractors. We are aware that PPE can be worn, but also concerned that this type of event isn't in line with the essential businesses described in the emergency orders. I mean, there could be a case made, but it doesn't necessarily fit where I am comfortable to recommend that we proceed. We did consider recommending deferral to 2021 and to save the money in the 2020 budget with the Circular Economy Act. This is likely going to be our last event that we have to host. So with that information, we are recommending that we postpone the event to September 5th. We have held that date for now, pending council's direction tonight.
Councillor comments?
No, sounds good.
Councillor Adams.
Yeah, sounds good. Certainly, if that's what we need to do to make sure our residents stay safe, then let's postpone it till September 5th.
Okay, do we have a motion? Any further comments first? Go ahead with the motion.
Motion moved by Rick Owens, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that report number 2020-dev-016 entitled Postponement of Material Hazardous Waste Event be received, and that staff be directed to postpone the material hazardous waste event scheduled for Saturday, May 23rd, 2020 to Saturday, September 5th, 2020.
All in favor? Unanimous, passed. Rescheduling of the Team Northern Throttle drag races, item 6.5. Ms. Ashley Bilodeau again.
Thank you, Worship. On October 29th, council approved the drag race to take place on June 10th to 15th at the airport. This event has been canceled, and they have now requested that the event be rescheduled given the circumstances with COVID-19. The proposed dates that they would like to rent the airport for this event are August 19th to the 24th. So essentially the same event, we're just rescheduling it to later in the summer.
Any comments or concerns? Councillor Ivanov?
No, I support that. I think it's a great idea. It's
Okay.
a great event. So I think we should allow them the flexibility to change it based on what's happening in current COVID Canada.
Agreed. Any other comments? Councillor Perrier?
So I would just think though, that once that time gets closer there, if things haven't changed, I'll revisit this again, eh? I'll be either changing the date again or canceling it, one of the two.
Yeah, through your worship, that's what we're proposing. So if there's a need to reschedule again, at this point, I think it'll just get canceled for 2020. But if there is further requests to reschedule because of emergency orders that are not being lifted, we'll reconsider and bring it back to council for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? We have a motion.
Motion moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that report number 2020-dev-017 entitled Rescheduling of Team Northern Throttle Drag Races be received, and that the Team Northern Throttle Drag Races be rescheduled from the weekend of June 10th to 15th, 2020 to the weekend of August 19th to the 24th, 2020.
All in favor? Unanimous, passed. Heritage North Service Delivery Review 6.6. Noted Councillor Adams and Councillor Ivanov have noted a pecuniary interest, and we'll put that one out. Mr. Wilf Haas.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Your Worship. In January 14th meeting of council, the following motion was passed by council. That council directs the CAO to begin a service review of Heritage North and provide options for different uses of Heritage North. Council, excuse me. Council asked for options for the different uses, including tendering out the operations of the banquet facility, moving municipal offices to Heritage North, sale of the property, and/or other income opportunities. The attached service delivery review was completed by myself and Scott McDowell, the interim manager. A number of alternatives were put forward. It is important to begin the discussion with a notice that Heritage North is classified as a discretionary service, and so there's no legislative or external rationale to provide the service. It's important that council understand it's always at council's discretion. It's not something that has to be done. Currently, the facility is a full service operation, meaning that municipal staff is actively involved in all stages of the client engagement, from booking the event to event management to cleaning. That makes the facility somewhat unique in Northeastern Ontario, especially with the comparators that were selected in the SDR, those being Commando Pavilion and Temiskaming Shores, Riverside Place. There are other operating models. We explore them, the underlying assumptions, strategy, options, and challenges of each. These scenarios are as follows: that Heritage North remains a municipally owned and operated full service event center. In other words, status quo. Number two, that Heritage North remains a municipally owned and operated minimal service event center. For council's clarification, that means that a booking is received, the client puts down a damage deposit, is given the keys, and they are responsible for setup, takedown, and any other services. Some services can obviously be taken from the municipality, such as bartending, etc., but under a minimal service event center, generally the onus is on the client to run everything. Scenario number three, Heritage North remains a municipally owned event center, but is operated through a partnership with community groups. This is the recommendation that staff is putting forward based on the idea that the benefit of the facility in terms of what it does and its as an asset to the community remains with the community. It's simply being leveraged to the maximum extent by the community groups that bring in events, etc. Scenario number four, Heritage North remains a municipally owned event center, but the private sector assumes responsibility for operations. That could be for the whole operation. It could be for parts of the operation. It could be for the whole facility. It could be for parts of the facility. That would be something that would have to be negotiated. Scenario number five, Heritage North remains a municipally owned facility, but is converted to house other municipal operations. That option, I don't think, is very realistic and would be very expensive to proceed with. I feel I need to say that. Scenario number six, that the municipality divests itself of Heritage North, sell the asset. In all these scenarios, there are factors that have to be taken into consideration. It is a 14-year-old building. It is maintained very well. Could pass for an 8 or 10-year-old building, but there will be costs that will be accrued in the future. I took a very quick 5-year glance and identified different items that would have to be addressed. They tally up to about $318,000 over 5 years. Major infrastructure renewal will eventually become a reality, and that would bring the cost quite a bit higher. I could not, and I would not estimate that to any degree of certainty without bringing in proper professional for that. When you look at, Council, also, there is the issue of COVID-19. Heritage North was performing on an uptick in 2019, and it looked as if 2020 would be the same. 2020 is effectively wiped out. We don't assume that we will have gatherings permitted to the state that Heritage North can handle till perhaps mid to late fall. And it also means that, as we are doing right now on a Zoom meeting, the uses of Heritage North may evolve as a result of COVID-19 as well. There is more telecommuting, there is more distance work from home. We're not sure how that will shake out for a facility where one of the main cost centers was the ability to come together in a work environment and to connect to other groups. There are financial considerations, of course, with every scenario. For the full service event center, we assumed that operating would remain probably at $150,000. Capital again, for a 5-year projection of known and assumed $318,000. If you look at a minimal event center, we believe that we can reduce the operating cost, but it's not a case of handing someone the keys and walking away. You still have the maintenance. You're likely to have higher care and maintenance costs because you don't have anybody in there managing it. It's just a fact of life. And I don't know that you would be asking for the claiming the same revenues. You have to anticipate as well that if the client is doing everything, they don't want to pay a higher premium price. A municipally owned event facility that is operated in partnership with community groups, likely we could bring the operating down to again to $75,000. At that point, you must be wondering what is involved in this operating. That's your insurance. It's keeping the doors open, doing the regular maintenance, snow clearing, etc. Those are the costs simply in relation to having the building and having someone look after it. Going with a municipally owned event facility with a private sector operation, again, if it's the municipality remains as a landlord, anticipating an operating again of $75,000. If the municipally owned but converted to new municipal operations, as I said before, it is very difficult to estimate. That building is not easy to convert. The ceilings are 30 feet high. It is a climate control building, automation. There are challenges there. We would anticipate that any renovation costs would begin at about $750 and go up. I'm basing that on the renovations that were done in 2013 to 2015. Those were primarily just on cosmetic inside. We did not touch lighting systems. We did not touch electrical to any great extent. We did not touch the heating systems. If we had, we probably couldn't afford to do the project. Municipal divestiture of Heritage North, again, it would depend on what you can get. A fair market value in the age of coronavirus may not be the same as 2 years down the road or what it was a year ago. So that could really affect it. When we look at these scenarios, we come back to the idea that, okay, it was built to be an asset to the community. If that's what council intends it to be, how can we try to operate it at the best scenario so it has the greatest impact on the community? And we suggest, again, working with community partners. But at least we're asking for direction to explore that. In terms of relationship to strategic priorities of council, I think it's important to state again, the review reflects council's commitment to ensuring sustainable finances and service delivery. We undertook it in that spirit, the review. That will conclude my presentation.
Mr. Haas, can you update us just a little bit on the appraisal? I understand they have been there. Is that correct?
Yes, they have. They are conducting that. The walkthrough has been performed. The analysis of the building infrastructure has been performed. They are looking at other buildings and trying to get a comparative point. It is a fairly unique building. It's extremely well built and has quite a bit of redundancy in it. So finding a comparator outside the health or security environment would be a challenge, but they are working on that.
I would have to agree. It'll definitely be a challenge. As it is, it's a single purpose building. We know there's a substantial investment between the community and grants and donations over the years, but I don't think realistically we can expect anything near that. So it'll be interesting to get the final report on that. I do think it's a very detailed report. A lot of work went into it. So thank you, and Scott. I think your approach recommendation makes a lot of sense to see what interest there is with community organizations within the community, and I would support that. Now, comments from councillors? Councillor Owen.
Since it's a non-essential service that we offer and a perennial money loser, I'm in favor of selling it, but not at this moment, because obviously we wouldn't get anywhere near market value. I don't want to see that kept and continually costing the taxpayers money. I just feel that if we could get a half decent price down the road, that we should seriously consider that. Yeah, that's where I stand.
I think I have to agree with you, Councillor Owen. There is a possibility when we're looking at organizations of going into this venture jointly or with a number of different groups, and there might be some monetary aspect in a sale. I'd rather have our name off the property and move on. I can never see us really breaking even on this one way or the other. So I do understand where you're coming from. Councillor Perrier?
No, I'm good.
No? Yeah, okay. Councillor Owens.
Yeah, my sentiment is a bit like Councillor Owen's point of view. If the municipality can't even break even on this building with the renovations and what we've done to it, the new reality, I don't see us being able to, or I don't see community groups being able to make money off of this venture, even if we do partner up with them. So I don't see any other option than to simply consider divesting the asset. Like, and it pains me to say this because I do think it brings a lot to the community, but we're at a point right now where this thing is losing money. There's no way out of it. It's a tough decision that we're gonna have to make on this one, but I don't see any other alternative than divestment of the asset completely.
Councillor White.
I really have to say a great big thank you to staff. This report just went over and above what any of us could have imagined. And it is a very beautiful facility, and it is an addition to the community. However, it's also sadly one of our elephants in the room for our community. I don't think we can ask community members to pay for the dreams of how big we could be, rather than the reality of what Kirkland Lake is. And there is nothing wrong with being a small community. I'm actually very proud of Kirkland Lake. In that, saying that, it appears the 4 of us that have spoken about this seem to be pretty clear on their direction. So rather than what has been proposed as a resolution, I would like to change the motion to begin the process of divesting the town of Kirkland Lake of Heritage North.
Any further comments or questions?
Your worship, if I may.
Yes.
Just to divest it, we certainly can take council's direction and begin that. But as you say, the facility and in the age of Corona will be difficult to move. In the interim period, do we continue to operate as we have been? Currently, the building is on minimal operations. The heat has been shut off. I think it's perhaps costing around $2,000 all in to operate it within a month. And we can certainly keep that going while COVID is still a factor. But at some point, we will be receiving inquiries for Christmas parties, etc., assuming that can happen. I would like to have some direction on that. It will help us with our planning.
Councillor Owens.
I feel if we start this process, it's going to be a lot easier to sell a functioning asset than an asset that is just sitting there collecting dust. So I personally would rather see us, like right now, it's COVID, it's just going to stay mothball. But when the Chief Medical Officer of Health gives us the goal that we can start functioning as a normal, whatever the new normal is going to be, but a normal municipality, that we should still offer the facility for rentals, but all the while keeping in mind that this building needs to be liquidated.
Councillor Owen.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. And the other thing is too, if we basically put it on care and maintenance, it doesn't receive the same level of maintenance that it would as an operating facility. So I think it's important to keep it operating. It's also much more sellable as it's operating, whether somebody's buying it for a banquet hall or conference center or to change over to something else. A living building gets more than a building that's sitting there full of dust. So I think once COVID-19 is finished, we resume operations until such time that we're able to look into divesting it in detail when we got the estimate on the appraisal and go from there. So I think that's the direction we should head.
Councillor Perrier.
I agree 100% with my fellow councillors. This building could sit there for a year, 2 years. Who knows how long it would sit there before anybody even shows any interest into it. So I think we should keep it going while we can, keep the heat on and everything like that, because as soon as you start closing things down, that's when you get real problems. Thank you.
Question for Mr. Haas. Just to clarify, maybe I'm overthinking this one, but are you recommending to say proceed talking to different organizations, but in the meantime, the property is up for sale? I just want to kind of clarify what your thoughts are on that.
For you, your worship, that is actually the message I'm getting from council too. We do put the building up for sale, but we continue to operate it. I believe that the scenario would be that once we can come back to operations, you will have your municipal staff in there making sure that everything goes. And that would be part of the process where if there is a municipal group that is interested, we would bring that attention back to council, but our directions are to operate and proceed with divestiture.
I agree, to continue operations. But would we be in contact with any organization to see if there is some interest during that period?
Through you, your worship, I asked council for that direction. It could complicate matters too if we're going out talking to community groups, trying to get them interested while we're also trying to sell it.
It does complicate it.
Operating it becomes a little bit, self-defeating at that point.
Right.
Maybe I can help out a little bit, your worship. The clerk has an additional motion here from the receive, and that staff be directed to divest the municipality of the asset while continuing the operation of the facility. Anybody who's watching this council meeting this evening, anyone who reads the article in the paper that has an interest in Heritage North is encouraged to contact the municipality, and we would be very pleased to bring forward any proposals or any suggestions, any feedback whatsoever to council. This is a community facility that ideally would be best suited to stay within the community realm of operations with a local community group. And if we can work to support a community group who purchases or takes over the operations and divests the municipality. I think that's what council is asking for. And staff is quite pleased to bring forward any possible solutions that will best serve the people of Kirkland Lake. I hope that helps, your worship. Thank you.
Councillor White had her hand up.
Yes, I don't, one of the first paragraphs in this report was the cost of the facility was financially underwritten by the municipality as it assumed 4.1 million loan to cover construction costs. That was due to a community group. They had this amazing idea for what was envisioned of Hockey Heritage North. It was unable at that time to make enough money to break even to be worth operating since its inception. So as much as I would love for this idea of a community group in the town of Kirkland Lake being able to sustain themselves at this building, unfortunately, I really don't see it as a reality of our community. However, I've been proven wrong before. So I would really like to continue with the motion as I presented to begin the process of divesting Heritage North from the town of Kirkland Lake, but to continue to operate as per my fellow council members.
I do agree with you, Councillor White. It would be a stretch for somebody, a white knight, to come in as an organization to take over a losing proposition. I hate to call it that, but it is. But I mean, what the CAO just mentioned, I mean, if somebody does come to council or to staff and shows an interest, definitely we'll listen to them. But in the meantime, we're looking at divesting. I agree. Councillor Owen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this council is open-minded. If somebody came up with an idea and could sell it on us, even though we're looking at divesting the property right now, if an individual or a group came to us with an idea that really made sense, there's nothing saying that we wouldn't change direction. So I think the motion should stand as it is because that's what we're deciding right now. But we're also sending out the message that if somebody can come up with a better idea, an idea that will end up with that facility not costing the taxpayers any money, we're more than open to hear it, and we'd love to hear it.
Agree 100%. Can we adjust that motion accordingly?
Yes, so I have an amended motion to read, moved by Stacy White, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that report number 2020-ED-003 entitled Heritage North Service Delivery Review be received, and that staff be directed to begin the process to divest the municipality of Heritage North and report back to council operating the facility until a sale is concluded.
Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Unanimous. Passed. Thank you, Mr. Haas and Scott, for the great job you did on it. It clarified a lot of things. And these are tough decisions, but you helped make the decision a little bit easier. We needed some direction. So thank you. We will move on to Treasurer Keith Gorman on proposed 2020 capital budget item 6.7.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to council.
Can we bring back Councillor Adams and Councillor Ivanov? Oh, there they are. They switched places on me. Okay. Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Sorry, Keith.
Through you to council. Memorandum to council 2020 FIN 001 has been put forth this evening to move along the budgeting process for 2020. It serves as an introduction to proposed capital projects and purchases for consideration, provides mechanisms for our input from both council and the general public, and proposes that a special meeting of council be called for May 12th at which time more detailed discussion surrounding the recommendations should occur. As I've touched on in previous meetings and discussions, the intent was to provide a clear, transparent process, and hope the efforts of our team have reflected that within this document. The teams willingly embrace change, and I believe that this is a positive step forward and will be helpful as we continue to establish processes going forward, particularly around how we enter and execute on capital projects, as well as how we report and communicate on them. The special meeting of council on May 12th is intended to serve for approvals of projects to be brought forward for consideration in the overall consolidated budget. I believe it is important to stress that this will only serve to bring them forward within the process, and that if required, further assessment can and will likely incur as we better understand the full impact in conjunction with the consolidated budget. Through active and at times heated discussion, we collectively as a management team believe the projects put forth warrant consideration regardless of how each is intended to be funded. We've also included those items which we've determined as non-essential or those that we're not likely to get around to this year, and as such have recommended them for deferral to 2021 for further consideration. The list put forward continues to be actively reviewed, and we continue to look for opportunities to reduce where reasonable and possible, as well as seek opportunities to fund some of the projects through other mechanisms. As we make amendments to the existing list, they're being logged and summarized. And for the May 12th special meeting, the summary of the changes will be forwarded along with updated summaries. As we close out our 2019 fiscal year end, you'll observe a number of aspects which are directly impacting the size and scope of capital recommendations for 2020. Some of which include an underspend on 2019 capital projects relative to their budgets, and the resulting buildup of reserve funds from 2019 to 2020. And you'll see that in 2020 with the recommendations proposed, we subsequently begin to draw those down. I'd like to take a few minutes to briefly reiterate the process for input and responses. We've activated a subpage within the Town of Kirkland Lake website with a large button available right directly from the main page. We ask that visitors visit this subpage, and within they'll find a Q&A section, which includes a form for submissions, which is the preferable method for input. But alternatively, visitors can email me directly or phone me at 705-567-9361, extension 238. As we receive queries up until May 12th, we'll distribute them out to the management team, and then those questions and responses will be placed within that Q&A subpage on the website as received and responded to. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and we look forward to next Tuesday where we discuss the projects put forward at greater length. Any questions?
My initial comments, Treasurer Keith, is this is the first time I've seen in 5 years such a concise and detailed capital budget. In particular, all the items have a separate box, if you want to call it, or page, stating what the item required is, the urgency, the effect of not doing it. It certainly made it a lot more easier for council members, at least myself, I will speak for, to go through it and determine what, why, what, and where, basically. So first of all, thanks to yourself and Peter Georgioff and your Treasury staff. Job well done. Open this up to council for any comments and questions. Councillor Adams.
Yeah, I just want to start off by saying what a stellar job staff did with completing this budget and getting all the capital reports ready. Unfortunately, due to COVID, I am going to prove that we're going to have the budget meetings, but just moving forward, being a member of council that does policy and stewardship, which is listening to the members of the community. I go to the gas station and I hear people talking about how they're laid off, how they're not making money. And it's going to be very difficult for me this year to talk about raising taxes when there's one of our largest employers is doing major changes right now. There's people out of work being laid off. And I'm going to take that stewardship role pretty seriously this year. But that will be for May 12th, just as a heads up. I'm only one member of council with one vote. And yeah, great job. And I look forward to the May 12th meeting.
Councillor Owen.
Yeah, Keith, I just want to thank you for the format that you presented the budget in. Even a non-numbers guy like me, it was easy for me to understand. And I think it's a format that the public would find quite easy to understand. And I just want to thank you and your staff. Just let you know that myself as a councillor appreciate the work and the way you did it this year. Thank you very much.
If I could just speak up for 1 second, through your worship to everyone, I was really a collective effort amongst the team. Basically, the senior team all bought into process changes. They all worked very hard. They participated in very active discussions, and there was no titles at the table. So we were able to actively discuss different areas, and we sought input from one another. And I'd like to commend them for that. And those that weren't directly involved in this part of the process were willing to cover other areas. So take, for instance, Sherry, where, this wouldn't have been an opportunity for us to actually proceed the way we have if I was focusing on year end. That really shows you, because the team stepped up across the organization to put out a product such as this. And so we look forward to next Tuesday.
Treasurer Keith, if I might say, I went through it fairly thorough. There's still a lot to digest, and I think it gives councillors an opportunity over the next week to look at it further and digest. I mean, we just got it basically over the weekend. So my initial thoughts are I didn't see anything on there that we didn't need. But I guess my thoughts is, and it ties in a bit with what Councillor Adams is saying. It's going to be a very difficult year. We know that. And when you come back on May the 12th, it's just a suggestion. I don't know if the rest of council agree with me, but if we find we have to cut in on some capital project purchase, if we could prioritize like number 1, 2, and 3 when you come back on the 12th. I'm not saying, yes, we're going to say cut this, cut that, but I think we have to know the no frills, if worst case scenario, because we don't know what the operating budget is going to look like. We know we have some issues that are carrying over from the previous year with arbitration awards and whatnot. So it's a little bit of an unknown factor for us right now, for us to say, yes, we agree, go ahead with the capital budget as it stands without knowing what's going to happen with the operating budget. So maybe prioritizing like on a 1, 2, 3 basis, 1 being essential, and 2 and 3 in that order. I don't know what other councillors' thoughts are on that, but I know we have done that in the past, and that's not to say we're trying to cut anything out, but I mean, if we have to look at alternatives, there's going to be some tough decisions have to be made. How does council feel about that?
Sounds good.
Councillor
Maybe.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Rowe.
The one big concern I had when I looked at the budget was the amount that we have that's in that budget for capital and where we're going to come up with that. And so I think, yeah, I think that some guidance on things that we might have to cut that would have least impact on the community, on the municipality or its operations, I think would be welcomed by council, because we're not part of the operations. And the people in the operations, they know what's going to least impact their jobs and the functioning of the community. So I think we do need some more input on that. I am concerned about the costs. I'm not saying that the requests are unreasonable or not needed, but these are different times and uncertain times. And, you know, this council's got a lot of tough decisions to make, and we're facing situations that no other council has ever faced. So I think we need some guidance to come back for the next meeting. I would appreciate it myself.
Your worship, maybe I can help out a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it would be best to wait until the 12th, to be honest, before we start taking steps to try and make reductions, when the reality is there's 3 projects that account for the majority of the capital budget. The Swastika project, which I don't think council is going to cancel, which is predominantly funded by grants. There's the West End water expansion project. And the reality is that staff was very diligent in eliminating the non-high priority projects. We really have it to a point where on the 12th, I think council can go through it. And most of the items are going to cause business continuity issues potentially. It may be most beneficial just to let's move toward the 12th and not take any action at this.
Yeah, I understand where you're
I
coming
lost part of
from.
that conversation.
Go ahead, Councillor Owen.
I lost part of that conversation, so I
It kind of cut out.
Yeah, I apologize, Your Worship. I think it's best just to take the recommendation at face value. Let's get to the 12th and let's.
You cut out again.
Rather than make any decisions now without the full presentation. And I apologize. I have somebody trying to call me, which is interrupting the Zoom meeting. My apologies.
No problem. I mean, there's council could come back on the 12th as well. I mean, it's each councillor's prerogative to say, look, I should defer this to 2021, a certain thing. There's certain projects in there, like you said, that we've started, and there's government grants money that we, in order to maintain those grant monies, that we have to go ahead with. No question about that. It's just hard to say, okay, we're approving, is it 7? I haven't got the figures exactly right here now, but say $7 million, and then all of a sudden we have huge increases from an operating standpoint. Then we're going to have to come back again and look at the capital budget. So I think that's what at least that's my thoughts. I'm not saying cut. I agree with Councillor Owen, and I think most councillors will agree. When you look at the presentation that was provided to us, there is nothing in there that is that shouldn't be there. But if times are tough and you have to make a tough decision, then it's just a consideration. We're not looking at coming back on the 12th and say, hey, cut $2 million off the capital budget. We understand where you're coming from. Councillor Owen?
This may be a stupid question, but I've been known to ask a few. Some of those projects are, the application from senior level of government is still pending. What happens if we approve this budget, which in effect approves those projects, and then we don't get the funding from the senior level of governments? Does that mean we still have the option of dropping those projects?
Through your worship to council, yes, Councillor Owen. Essentially, I think there was a similar thing last year where there was several significant projects that were effectively removed from the budget when funding didn't come through. And we'd work on a similar process for this year.
Okay,
As
thank
we're
you.
touched on, there's a lot of significant projects within that are tied to government funding. And if you look at the dollars and the scope, they are heavily funded as far as a percentage basis. And so definitely, like I said, echoing Rick's comments, there's not a lot of fluff. There's a few things though that we can come back. We appreciate the concern, and there's an opportunity where we can discuss it a little bit and come forward on the 12th.
I think we're all in agreement that if the motion is to accept the report, it's very well done and very thorough. And obviously a lot of thought went into it. It wasn't just thrown together. No problem with that. But I think in the back of your mind as well, you kind of hear where we're coming from, what some concerns we might have. And it's food for thought. You may have a little different approach when we come to the 12th. And by that time, we all had a chance to digest this a little further as well. I mean, without question, that as I keep repeating myself, but everything that's in there is needed at some point. No argument there. Are we in agreement with that, Council?
Okay, I have a motion moved by Casey Owens, seconded by Eugene Ivanov. Be it resolved that memorandum number 2020-FIN-001 entitled Proposed 2020 Capital Budget be received, and that the proposed 2020 capital budget be referred to a special meeting of council to be called for May 12th, 2020, beginning at 4:40 p.m.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Unanimous, passed. Thank you for a job well done. Consideration of motions, none noted. Introductions, reading, and consideration of bylaws.
Motion moved by Dennis Perrier, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 20-043, being a bylaw to impose fees for automatic alarms, false.
All in favor? Passed, unanimous. Questions from council to staff, none noted. Notice of motion, none filed. Councillors' reports. Councillor Adams.
Yeah, as mentioned earlier, I was at the gas station and heard a few people that were no longer employed. Very sad, certainly difficult times during this COVID. There's some hotels that have laid off staff and they're not making income. And there's some difficult times in our community. My heart goes out to them during these difficult times, and hopefully we can keep them in our mind during these budget talks. So that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Sorry, yes. So there was, I did have a considerable conversation with a few members of my council group about the dates of our spring cleanup. This year it is still pretty frigid out there, coming out of a very long winter. So there was some concerns or comments that perhaps next year, depending on whether we should push it back by a week. So that's just something for staff consideration next year. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you. Any other comments? I've got a litany of a couple of things here, just to update the community safety and wellness. Just to update council and the community as well. That is basically been put on hold by the province. We were nowhere near even getting any type of initiation to getting a report through. I guess we were going to look at DSAB, but anyway, everything's on the table for now. Obviously, the COVID issue is part of it. We're not able to move forward anyway. I'd just like to compliment our head of community planning, Ashley Bilodeau. The video for the landfill site, I think it was your first attempt. I gotta say, I've had a lot of real nice comments on it. I thought it was excellent. So congratulations, well done. Also, a big thank you out to some community-minded citizens who have those signs made up that are put out on the business. I put one in the town hall office today, recognizing and thanking our front people working out in the front lines. They are our heroes. Keep up the good work. We appreciate all the efforts. Also, St. Cyr and Associates put on a video on, it's on YouTube, but it's on Facebook, recognizing the frontline workers as well. And it's exceptionally well done. So it just shows you what kind of community we have when everybody pulls together. Thank you to all those people who were involved in those processes. It makes Kirk Lake proud, that's for sure. Any other comments? Councillor Perrier.
I just should mention that I was talking to the president of the Culver Park Operating Authority. They're all closed up and everything's locked down, so they're ready. They got a plan in place ready to go the moment that they say we can open up again. But they got everything under control out there.
It sounded like the province is getting close to allowing the opening of the parks. Wasn't quite clear on it, but that was what I got out of it. But hopefully that's going to happen soon. Obviously, life has changed out at the park a bit. It'll have to operate differently, that's for sure. But they've always worked well out there, and it's been well organized. So I'm sure they'll have everything. Health and safety will be the #1 priority, that's for sure. But it'd be nice to see that park open, I agree. Any other comments from councillors? Oh, go ahead, Councillor.
Just one more quick comment. I'd like to apologize for my my error in my finger typing on my email I sent out there about the swastika duck pond.
It was quite colorful.
Yeah, I had some pretty good comments back on it.
It's happened to the best of us.
Yeah. That's what happens when you got big fingers.
Yeah. Additional information, none noted. We have motion to move into a closed session.
Motion moved by Rick Owens, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that council move into an in-camera meeting pursuant to section 239(2) to discuss 2 matters about identifiable individuals and 1 matter to discuss a plan and procedure to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality.
All in favor? Unanimous? We have minutes of the, are we okay to move ahead now?
I'm just gonna
Oh,
do
wait.
some technical stuff here to stop the
Yeah.
live stream.
Okay, that's what I thought.